This is El-Amin, a Richmond, Virginia community elder, and I am doing this brief podcast as a message to a fine young man, an upcoming politician, Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax. And I want to give this special message to Mr. Fairfax in light of the growing controversy and the fallout of the revelations of the racist imagery announced yesterday and put out yesterday on Virginia's Governor Ralph Northam, showing him in a picture in his yearbook from 1984 from his medical school, where he is featured either in blackface or in a Klu Klux Klan uniform, and the fact that one of his names while at the medical school was Coon Man. Now, Northam has come out recently, as yesterday, seeking apology for what he did, acknowledging the racism and disrespect of what he did, but refused as of this moment to indicate which one of the two figures in the picture was him. And so for me and others, that's really not a full apology. And while he acknowledges the hurt and disrespect that image or images showed, he still maintains that he can keep his seat as governor of Virginia, which he's been called by many politicians and leaders, African American and others, to step down. But Brother Fairfax, unfortunately, you have yet to speak on this, and that is troublesome. Now, you acquitted yourself well when for the last 2 years you refused to preside at the Virginia General Assembly because of a commemoration of Robert E. Lee. And I believe that you are the first lieutenant governor to do that, even with, at the time, Lieutenant Governor L. Douglas Wilder, who was the first African American to serve as lieutenant governor since Reconstruction. And you deserve kudos for that. But it's one thing to take a position against a person who lived over 150 years ago and not take a position on a person who sits as governor today. And this is the second day of Black History Month. And I implore you, my brother, you must speak out on this, because your failure to do so will not acquit you well, because as others who don't have as much as a personal stake in asking Northam to sit down, because if he resigns, you become governor, can serve out the rest of his 4-year term and then be eligible to run again. But you must take a position now and not allow political considerations to determine what you do, because this is not a political issue. This is an issue of human rights and human dignity. And so you must speak out, because speaking out later or letting someone else carry the mail for you will not be looked upon as being the kind of man who deserves the position, because you didn't speak out when you should have. And timing, as you know, in politics, is everything. So you have to stop being political, because, my brother, you remember that Northam this is the second indignity with regard to Northam, and especially to you, because during the campaign in 2017, he agreed to have you airbrushed, your figure airbrushed out of a flyer announcing a political campaign in Northern Virginia. And you didn't say much about that. In fact, you left it to former governor and former mayor Douglas Wilder to speak for you. And I felt that that was a little tacky, but I didn't want to say anything at that time. And now that you are Lieutenant Governor, and I was at a speech that you made recently where you talked about how proud your parents and grandparents are of you in achieving this lieutenant governorship. And as you spoken about your lineage, I know that they want you to speak out on this and not have others to carry the message that you should carry. Because there's no way that Northam can continue to govern. Because he brings to this whole situation a specter of racism and insult and mortification to African Americans in Virginia that will never be erased. And he will never be able to avoid or knock down that image. And if he wants to be contrite, as he suggests in his recent video clip, then he has to resign, because he cannot build or rebuild trust while still governor. And him wanting to remain governor is like the bank robber who gets caught and who goes before the judge and says, "Judge, I am sorry for what I did." And the judge says, "Well, what about the money that you took?" And the bank robber says, "Well, I'm going to keep that as a way because I'm going to prison, so I'm going to use that for my fresh start." In other words, the bank robber cannot keep the money, and Northam cannot keep his position as governor, because but for hiding the fact and not revealing the fact of these unfortunate photographs, he was able to win his political seats as lieutenant governor and now governor. And now that the cat's out of the bag, he cannot keep an ill-gotten gain which he got from suppressing the truth. So, my brother, as I indicated earlier in this brief podcast, step up, because in the game of life, and I can say this because I'm somewhat older than you, that in the game of life, you never are finished with challenging racism and challenging inhumanity and challenging disrespect. And you can't rest on what you did yesterday, because as each of these matters come up, as they will, you have to step to it quick, fast, and in a hurry. And don't seem to be engaged in political calculations, because that will take away from your image, and it will take away your responsibility as one of the leaders of the African American community, that is political leaders, to forge an example of not allowing racism to exist without your putting your stamp of disapproval on it. Because as Dr. King said, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. So, my brother, let's get about this. And I would expect in the next few hours that you will come out and ask Northam to step down. Peace, my brother. And may the force of who you are and what you represent continue to support you in your efforts to lead the way for people of African descent, as well as all Virginians.